Ladies and gentlemen, if someone starts pulling away from you, emotionally, mentally, or physically, don't panic. This is not your cue to chase. It's your invitation to pause, protect your energy, and remember exactly who you are. Because the moment you try to prove your worth to someone who's unsure about you, you've already forgotten that your value was never up for debate. So what do you do when you're being ignored? You stop begging for attention and start commanding respect. Stay with me. This might be the most important shift you ever make. When someone begins to withdraw from your life, it's natural to feel the impulse to close the gap. We want to reach out, ask what's wrong, and fix what feels broken. But this instinct often leads us in the wrong direction. The moment you notice distance, your energy can easily shift into panic and over-analysis. That's when you start texting more, checking your phone constantly, and replaying conversations to see what you might have done wrong. But here's the truth. Not everything needs to be fixed. Sometimes the space someone creates is not a problem for you to solve. It's an opportunity for you to observe. And in that moment, the most powerful thing you can do is choose yourself. Instead of leaning forward into uncertainty, you lean back into your own center. You stop waiting for someone else to fill the silence and start asking yourself what you need right now. There is immense strength in the ability to redirect your energy when someone else begins to pull away. Instead of chasing answers or seeking validation, that energy can be used to nourish your own life. Focus on the areas of yourself that you may have neglected. Reconnect with the things that make you feel alive, whole, and grounded. That might mean calling a friend, journaling your thoughts, or taking yourself out somewhere you love. When you do this, you send a powerful message, not just to others, but to yourself, that you are already complete. This isn't about playing games or pretending not to care. It's about genuinely shifting your attention back to the things that remind you of your value. Every time you center your energy on your own well-being, you create emotional gravity, and that gravity has a pull far stronger than any attempt to force connection. There's something magnetic about a person who isn't desperate for answers. When you demonstrate that you can maintain your peace even in uncertainty, you show emotional maturity. That steadiness is rare. Most people collapse under the weight of confusion, letting insecurity take over. But your strength lies in your ability to be present with the unknown. You don't have to fill the silence with noise. You don't need to chase a connection that is pulling away from you. Instead, you trust yourself enough to let things unfold naturally. People who are meant for you will not disappear when you stop chasing. They will be drawn to the calm confidence you exude. And if they don't return, they were never anchored in the first place. The space someone else creates allows you to ask, am I choosing people who choose me too? This shift in energy is not just about confidence, it's about freedom. When your sense of peace isn't dependent on how someone else behaves, you become untouchable in the best way. You stop measuring your worth by the responses you get. You stop molding yourself to fit into someone else's world. Instead, you return to your own rhythm. You wake up in the morning not waiting for a message, but excited about your own plans. You take control of your happiness instead of outsourcing it to someone else's attention span. This doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you start caring about yourself more. You build a life that is rich, full, and deeply satisfying with or without an other person showing up. Because in the end, that's what makes the right people want to be around you. Your joy is not borrowed, it's built. Most people operate from a place of scarcity when they feel distance, like there's something they're about to lose forever. But what if that distance was actually giving you something? What if it was creating the space for clarity, for self-reflection, and even transformation? When you stop grasping for what's slipping away, you free your hands to receive what's meant for you. You create emotional breathing room. You get to reassess your standards, your boundaries, and how much of yourself you're giving away too quickly. That distance helps you return to yourself, not lose yourself. And the beautiful thing is, the more deeply connected you become with yourself, the less you tolerate anything half-hearted. The more you invest in your growth, the less patience you have for anyone who's inconsistent. There's no need to make announcements or grand gestures when you're shifting your focus. Let your absence be felt. Let your peace speak louder than confrontation. When you quietly reclaim your energy, people notice. The world responds differently when you move from a place of self-assurance instead of scarcity. That doesn't mean you're being cold or playing hard to get. It simply means you know that you are the prize and you act accordingly. You don't make your love a reward for unpredictability. You don't beg someone to recognize what they're losing. You simply rise. You glow in your own light. You become so rooted in your own life that anyone not grounded in theirs can't help but notice the difference. Redirecting your energy is a habit worth building. It's not a one-time act of strength, it's a lifestyle. Every time you're tempted to shrink or chase, you remember your worth. You remind yourself that clarity doesn't come from begging, it comes from alignment. And the more aligned you are with your own truth, the more you repel what isn't meant for you. You become the kind of person who doesn't panic at the first sign of disconnection. You become the kind of person who can hold space for others and for yourself. That steadiness allows you to navigate relationships from a place of choice, not fear. It gives you the power to walk away if something no longer serves you, without anger or bitterness, just peace. This kind of emotional grounding transforms your relationships. Suddenly, you're no longer seeking someone to complete you. You're looking for someone who complements the life you've already built. That's a powerful shift. It changes how you date, how you communicate, and even how you process rejection. Because now, rejection doesn't feel like a threat to your identity. It's simply redirection, guidance towards something better aligned. And when someone pulls away, you don't take it as a cue to lose yourself. You take it as a sign to double down on your inner work. That inner work becomes your superpower. It shapes how you love, how you connect, and how you recover from disappointment. Your peace is not negotiable. The moment you start treating it as sacred, everything changes. You protect it not by controlling others, but by managing your own responses. When you stop chasing, you stop bleeding energy. You stop making someone else's silence louder than your own intuition. You stop compromising your standards just to hold on to attention. You begin to trust that real connection doesn't require force. It flows, and it starts with how you treat yourself when things get uncertain. The more you show up for yourself, the more you realize you don't need anyone to validate your worth. You've already claimed it. Choosing not to chase isn't about giving up, it's about rising up. It's about standing tall in the face of distance, knowing that you have your own back. It's about being so full of your own life that you're no longer emotionally starving. Strength becomes your compass. It leads you away from confusion and toward clarity. It helps you release what doesn't choose you and embrace what truly does. And in the end, that shift doesn't just protect your heart, it elevates your entire life. When someone pulls away or goes silent, it's easy to feel the urge to fix things immediately. The mind starts racing, trying to fill in the blanks, create stories, or imagine worst-case scenarios. Silence feels threatening when you're used to constant feedback and validation. But not every quiet moment is a crisis. Sometimes it's a pause, a space for clarity to emerge, if you let it. The key is to resist the knee-jerk reaction, to reach out just to soothe your discomfort. Reacting impulsively can come from fear, not clarity, and it often leads to more confusion. Instead of demanding answers or chasing reassurance, take a breath. The pause isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. Give yourself permission to observe without rushing in to control what you don't understand yet. There's a difference between responding and reacting. Reacting is emotional, immediate, and usually fueled by anxiety. Responding, on the other hand, comes from a calm place rooted in self-awareness. It allows you to check in with your emotions before you act on them. When you feel ignored or dismissed, your first instinct might be to prove your value or get someone's attention. But when you pause and choose to respond intentionally, you stay in your power. You give yourself the gift of emotional space before offering energy to someone else. That space allows you to reflect. What am I feeling? What do I need? Is this about them, or is this about me feeling unsteady within myself? That reflection helps you respond in ways that are grounded, not reactive. Silence doesn't always mean disrespect. Sometimes it's uncertainty, avoidance, or emotional overwhelm. But the reason behind the silence isn't always the point. What matters more is how you choose to interpret it and what you do with that interpretation. You can create peace, even in the absence of information. You don't need to write scripts for someone else's behavior. You don't have to guess or assume or internalize things that may have nothing to do with you. Just because someone doesn't speak doesn't mean you should turn up your volume. Sometimes your strength is in staying still, watching, listening, and gathering information about how someone shows up when things aren't easy. Their silence is an answer in itself. You teach people how to treat you by the way you handle their silence. If you rush in to fix things every time communication breaks down, you may unintentionally show that you're okay with inconsistency. But if you hold space without chasing, blaming, or begging, you show that emotional maturity is your standard. You don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to perform to be noticed. Your calm, grounded presence speaks volumes. People start to realize that your attention isn't guaranteed. It's earned through consistent, respectful connection. By responding with grace rather than panic, you make it clear that your emotions are not at the mercy of someone else's behavior. Responding wisely also means recognizing when the silence is no longer a pause but a pattern. Patterns speak louder than words. If someone repeatedly goes silent, ignores you, or disappears when it matters, that's data, not drama. You don't need to analyze every moment or excuse every absence. You simply take note. You let people reveal themselves over time, and you let that information guide your decisions. Responding means using what you observe to inform your boundaries, not override them. It means choosing what kind of treatment you are willing to accept, not based on fear, but based on self-respect. Your response becomes a reflection of your standards, not your insecurities. In every moment of silence, there is an invitation to reconnect with ourself. What are you feeling right now? What's rising to the surface? Is it loneliness, rejection, abandonment? Often, what's triggered by someone else's distance is an old wound surfacing for attention. When you respond instead of react, you create the space to tend to that wound. You ask yourself, what is this bringing up in me that needs healing? And then you tend to it with compassion, patience, and understanding. You stop outsourcing your emotional needs and begin meeting them within. That practice builds strength. It creates emotional independence, and it makes you less likely to crumble when someone else becomes unpredictable. Responding also means knowing when to say nothing. Not every silence needs to be broken. Not every space needs to be filled. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply not engage, not out of spite or punishment, but out of deep self-worth. You don't chase clarity from someone unwilling to offer it freely. You don't beg for communication that should be basic, not earned. When you stay quiet, you give yourself time to recalibrate. You hold your peace, not because you don't have words, but because your energy is too valuable to spend recklessly. That stillness is not passive, it's active strength in disguise. When you respond rather than react, you build trust with yourself. You prove that you can handle discomfort without spiraling. You show yourself that even when the external world feels uncertain, your internal world remains steady. That trust is everything. It helps you walk away when needed, without drama or desperation. It helps you stay calm in the face of inconsistency. And most importantly, it reminds you that someone else's silence does not define your worth. Their behavior may disappoint you, but it doesn't have to destabilize you. You are still whole, still grounded, and still capable of making empowered choices. Letting silence be is a skill. It takes patience, discipline, and self-love. It means choosing not to perform for love. Ian's resisting the need to fill every uncomfortable moment with action. Sometimes the silence you're experiencing is a test, not from someone else, but from life itself. Can you hold steady when you don't get what you want right away? Can you stay rooted in your value when no one is there to affirm it? Can you listen to your intuition instead of your anxiety? These are the questions that shape how you respond. And your response creates your experience, not the silence itself, but how you choose to meet it. In the end, every moment of silence is a mirror. It reflects not just what others are doing, but how you treat yourself when things get quiet. Will you turn against yourself, or will you turn toward yourself? Will you demand answers, or will you cultivate peace? The power lies in choosing to stay emotionally present without needing to control the outcome. You don't have to react just because someone else stops showing up. You get to decide what happens next. You get to choose yourself. And that choice over time becomes the most powerful response of all. Standards are not rules you give to others. They're the quiet agreements you make with yourself about how you expect to be treated. They aren't announced loudly or demanded in frustration. They're shown in how you carry yourself, how you respond to inconsistency, and how you choose to stay or walk away. A standard isn't about forcing someone to rise up. It's about refusing to lower yourself. When someone pulls back or acts distant, it's not your job to convince them to stay. That's where your standard speaks the loudest, not in your words, but in your boundaries. It's easy to talk about what you deserve, but it's your actions in uncertain moments that show whether you truly believe it. Your silence, your absence, your calm detachment, all of these can express more than any ultimatum ever could. Standards are the foundation of self-respect, and self-respect never begs for clarity. You don't need to explain your worth to be worthy. If someone can't recognize it, that's their limitation, not your failure. It's tempting to want to argue for your value, to spell out all the ways you've been good, loyal, or supportive. But true strength comes in recognizing that your value doesn't increase when others finally see it. It was always there. You don't prove your importance by holding on tighter to someone who's slipping away. You prove it by knowing when to release what no longer aligns with your peace. This isn't about coldness, it's about clarity. A person who honors themselves doesn't use their energy trying to fix people. They simply create distance where there is confusion and invest deeper where there is consistency. That quiet withdrawal based on a standard is far more powerful than any desperate appeal. People feel your energy before they hear your words. When your standards are internalized, you no longer need to perform strength. You live it. You don't threaten to leave just to get attention. You don't use silence as a weapon. Instead, you step back with grace because anything less than mutual effort doesn't fit your life anymore. That shift is subtle but powerful. It creates a dynamic where you're no longer fighting for scraps. You're curating your environment. You become unavailable to chaos. You no longer chase potential. You respond only to consistency. Standards set the tone for how others approach you, not because you force them, but because you embody something steady. And those who are unstable won't last long in your presence. The difference between a standard and an ultimatum is emotional intention. Ultimatums come from a place of fear. They're about control and desperation. Standards come from self-worth. They don't demand, they decide. A standard doesn't say, if you don't treat me this way, I'll leave to punish you. It says, if this behavior continues, I'll choose to remove myself because this isn't what I want for my life. It's not about threatening someone into better behavior. It's about walking in alignment with your own truth. And that kind of quiet certainty changes everything. It stops the cycles of drama and inconsistency. It removes the need for explanation. You simply act in accordance with what you believe you deserve and let others either rise to meet you or fall away. You can love deeply and still have standards. In fact, having standards is the most powerful form of love because it means you love yourself enough not to settle. You don't confuse effort with emotional safety. You understand that connection without consistency is chaos in disguise. So when someone shows up in a way that contradicts your peace, you don't fight them. You free yourself. This isn't coldness, it's wisdom. It's knowing that love should not cost you your self-worth. You can care and still choose space. You can miss someone and still walk away. That's the paradox of self-respect. It's both soft and firm. compassionate and unwavering. Often people will test the boundaries you set, not out of malice, but out of habit. And in those moments, how you respond teaches them how to treat you. If you bend every time someone steps out of alignment, your standard becomes a suggestion, not a boundary. But when you follow through quietly and consistently, people begin to understand your peace is not optional. You don't punish them, you simply remove access to your energy. That energy is your currency. Where you place it matters. If you give it to confusion, you create more of it. If you protect it with standards, you create a space where real connection can thrive. And over time, that quiet strength earns more respect than any argument ever could. Standing firm in your standards requires you to tolerate short-term discomfort for long-term peace. It means choosing solitude over emotional inconsistency. It means being okay with someone walking away rather than begging them to stay under conditions that break your soul. That's not easy. It takes courage. But every time you honor your standards, you build trust with yourself. You reinforce the idea that you are someone worth protecting. And when you treat yourself like you matter, the world begins to mirror that back. Your boundaries create safety, not just for you, but for the people who come into your life with genuine intentions. They know exactly what kind of space they're entering, and that clarity is a gift. It's not your job to teach someone how to value you. Your only job is to value yourself so clearly and consistently that those who can't match it naturally fall away. You don't need to be angry or bitter about it. You simply let things unfold without interference. You trust that letting go of what doesn't feel right makes room for what will. That's the power of living by a standard. It acts as a filter. It keeps out the noise, the confusion, the people who want your light but not your heart. It protects your energy from being poured into empty wells. It lets you sleep at night knowing you didn't have to abandon yourself for connection. And that is peace. When you set a standard, you're not being demanding, you're being discerning. You're saying, this is how I love myself, and anything that threatens that is not for me. That level of clarity creates emotional freedom. You stop tying your identity to how others show up. You stop holding on to potential and start recognizing patterns. And when someone's behavior falls below the line, you don't need to scream about it. You just move differently. That movement speaks for itself. It tells the world you are not here to convince, to chase, or to perform. You're here to connect deeply and honestly, and only with those who are capable of doing the same. The most powerful people in relationships are not the ones who shout their worth. They're the ones who live it. Every decision, every boundary, every moment of grace under pressure becomes a statement, I know who I am. And that knowledge is everything. It guides your responses, protects your heart, and shapes your future. You may lose people along the way, but what you gain is far greater, a sense of self that cannot be shaken. Your standard isn't a wall, it's a gate. It doesn't keep love out. It simply makes sure only the kind of love that honors you gets in. There is something undeniably powerful about someone who knows they are enough. That kind of self-possession radiates far beyond looks, status, or external validation. It shows up in how you carry yourself, how you speak, and how you respond when things don't go your way. When you know your worth, you stop needing others to constantly remind you of it. You move differently. You don't beg for time, attention, or love. You don't chase explanations or force closure. You don't contort yourself trying to prove your value. Instead, you embody it quietly, confidently, consistently, and let your energy speak before your words ever do. Desperation repels, but certainty attracts. When you move from a place of emotional security, people feel it. They feel that you are not looking for someone to complete you, but for someone to meet you. You're not an empty vessel needing to be filled. You're already full. You've built a life that is rich with meaning, connection, and self-respect. And anyone who enters it needs to complement that, not compete with it. You don't audition for love. You don't sell your soul to keep someone interested. You hold space for real connection, but you don't beg for it. That distinction is everything. It shifts the dynamic from please choose me to are we aligned? Your energy becomes a mirror. When someone encounters a person who is grounded in their worth, they are forced to confront their own. They either rise to meet your level of self-awareness, or they retreat. That's not rejection, it's clarity. You no longer take it personally when someone can't match you emotionally. You see it for what it is, a mismatch, not a flaw in you. That kind of emotional detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care deeply but not recklessly. You protect your heart not by building walls, but by knowing that not everyone deserves a front row seat to your life. That discernment is part of your power. Authenticity becomes your filter. You stop pretending to be easygoing when your heart wants depth. You stop laughing at things that hurt just to avoid conflict. You stop overextending yourself in hopes that someone will finally see your value. You know that being fully yourself is the only sustainable way to build real intimacy. And if someone can't hold space for your truth, you gracefully step away. That grace isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It means you don't need to scream to be heard or shrink to be loved. You just live in your truth and let it sort what's real from what's not. And over time, that truth draws in what's aligned with it. Certainty also changes how you handle silence, distance, or withdrawal. You don't jump into panic mode when things feel uncertain. You don't rush to fill the space out of fear that you'll be forgotten. Instead, you breathe, you stay grounded, you remind yourself that the right people won't need to be chased, they'll want to stay. That calmness is magnetic. It says, I am not afraid of space because I don't disappear in it. You trust that if something is meant for you, it won't require constant pursuit, and if it fades away, it wasn't meant to stay. That clarity allows you to release without resentment and continue without bitterness. The more rooted you become in your worth, the less you tolerate what feels misaligned. It's not about being arrogant or inflexible, it's about knowing that your peace is non-negotiable. You stop trying to manage people's potential and start paying attention to their patterns. You let actions speak. You let behavior reveal truth. And when the energy isn't reciprocated, you don't plead for change. You simply redirect your focus. You become the kind of person who doesn't settle for breadcrumbs because you've tasted the fullness of life on your own. That wholeness becomes your standard, and anything less becomes obvious. When you operate from certainty, your boundaries become clear and kind. You don't set them out of fear, you set them from self-respect. They're not walls designed to shut people out, but gates that allow the right energy in. You no longer feel guilty for needing space, clarity, or honesty. You stop explaining your worth and start embodying it. That embodiment changes your presence in every room you walk into. You become deeply rooted in your values. You know what you want, what you need, and what you won't tolerate. And when someone can't meet that, you don't bend. You bless and release. The beauty of this certainty is that it doesn't just protect you, it also inspires others. People feel safe around you because your energy is steady. You don't manipulate, overgive, or lose yourself in pursuit of affection. You show up with your heart open, but your standards intact. That balance is rare and deeply attractive. It makes people want to rise, not because you demand it, but because your presence invites it. And if they don't rise, you don't fall. You stay exactly where you are, grounded in the knowledge that love should never cost you your dignity. Over time, this way of being becomes effortless. You stop trying to prove and start simply being. You live from a place of joy that isn't conditional. Your self-esteem doesn't spike when someone pays attention or crumble when they pull away. It stays steady because it's rooted in something real, your relationship with yourself. You trust your intuition, you honor your needs, you embrace your flaws without apology. And that kind of inner freedom is irresistible. It's not about being perfect, it's about being real, being whole, and being unapologetically you. In this space of self-assuredness, you learn to love in a whole new way. It's no longer about clinging or convincing, it's about connection, not control.